Welcome back to Chasing Whiskey. I'm Terry.
I'm James.
And we have a couple glasses and we've got another bottle. What do we have this week, James?
This being week number 10, we have Teacher's Highland Cream.
This, if you remember, is a little bit against our palate.
Right.
So we had said we should try a peated one. This has been sitting in my house for a while. It was a gift. I do know the price, which you do not. I did go and look it up. We can get it locally, but it was a gift to me. And it's been sitting there because it is a peaty scotch, and I don't tend to like peaty scotches. But
this will be interesting because now that we've gone through...
Yeah, we have a little bit of a more, I don't know if it's a sophisticated palate, but more experience for
It's
sure.
definitely more sophisticated.
Yeah.
It's just not sophisticated.
Yeah. Anyway, so it's a little bit new for us, but I'm looking forward to it, actually. I've been looking forward to it all week.
Cool.
What do you think of the bottle?
I like the bottle. Didn't come in a tube, which is...
I know. No tube, no box.
I love the tube in the box.
And the top is not a cork. It's a screw top. It is a blended whiskey, I know that.
The bottle is nicely embossed.
Yeah, it's got a little sunburst or something, and it looks almost like
sunburst on there.
Yeah, and a green, a little bit of wheat grain or something emblem in the middle of it.
And it's embossed at the bottom, Glasgow, Scotland. Yeah, it's a pleasant bottle. Not sure how I feel about the...
It's funny because with the Japanese, when we unscrewed the cork unscrewed the top, I should say, on the Japanese, I was kind of excited because it was different. It was unique. This is a scotch from Scotland. It doesn't have a cork.
Where's our cork?
Yeah. Anyway, but that's all right.
Okay.
Maybe it's more of a more common. I don't know. Who knows?
What do you think of the color?
I like the color. It's very wheat. At least it looks like that inside the bottle. We'll see what it's like in the glass.
We'll have to fix that.
Well, we will fix that.
Here we go.
It's just not the same. But you know what? It still works.
It does work. And if you've watched a past episode where we talked about whiskey going bad or things like that.
It won't get a bad cork.
That's
You'll
true.
never get mold on your cork.
That's true. Let's see here.
There we go.
Okay. Easy pouring.
Yeah.
Have a smell.
What do you think of the color in the glass? Ooh, I like the smell.
It's kind of right in the middle of the other ones we've tried.
Yeah.
Nothing notable or...
No, it's definitely it's a gold, but it's pretty light.
It's whiskey color.
It's whiskey colored. We're going backwards in terms of our sophistication.
Yeah.
So I don't know how, like on the scale of peat, I don't know where this sits, right? I just know that it said peated or malted scotch or something like that. And so I just didn't touch it. It just sat there for a long time.
It's pleasant. I like the smell.
Any notes you're picking up?
Just a subtle hint of what I imagine to be peat.
Oh, yeah? Anything else?
Just a subtle hint of earthiness. Sweet though still. This might be interesting because it may...
Yeah, we don't we have no experience, right? So
because we like sweet.
But it might be a sweet peaty, right? Who knows, right? So.
Maybe this is the perfect one to
who knows?
Get to
Again,
know
I felt like the Aberfeldy had a little bit of earthiness to it, but this is nice. It smells nice.
It's different. Again, they're all different.
They're all different, yeah. I think again, ready to win?
Yes.
Cheers.
Cheers.
It's a lot more earthy. It's not, I've had one peaty scotch that I just did not like at all. And so I've always avoided peaty scotches. This is not that strong compared to the one I had that I didn't like.
No, it's not. It's not overly peaty.
Nope.
There's a hint. It doesn't bother me at all as far as my, I've had the ones where I'm like, ooh, that's not for me.
Yep.
And hopefully it will be over time.
And I'd like to find them again. I don't even remember, that's the problem, is I don't remember what they were, right? So I used the word and I avoided the word instead of making note of the brand or the, the distillery. It's not bad. It wouldn't be something I'd gravitate toward, but it's not bad. Yeah, what do you think so far?
It's very pleasant.
Any particular flavors you're pulling out besides that little bit of earthiness?
It's one thing I noticed. There's absolutely zero bitterness in the finish. It's just completely smooth.
All I can feel is a little bit of alcohol flavor. Not a flavor, alcohol like, I don't want to use the word sting, but a little bit of alcohol at the back end. But I can't, like, you're right, there's nothing complex about it after the fact.
I was just thinking that
it's smooth after you've swallowed that, it's smooth. You just a little bit of after alcohol, like the,
And I think I prefer whiskeys with that bit of complexity where there's a bunch of stuff going on. This is kind of...
Well, it's not even that it's consistent. It feels like it drops off.
Yeah, it's almost single-dimensional.
Well, not even, like, to me, we don't know the terms, right? But to me, there's ones that have been smooth and consistent. There's ones that have, like, changed and are complex or different at the end. But I feel like this just drops off.
Yeah.
And the aftertaste is just a little bit of oil. Do you find anything other than just a little bit of oil?
No.
And I do find that alcohol-y feeling. But again, I haven't had anything before today. Sometimes we have a little bit of alcohol before. It is 40% alcohol, so it's not that strong. But I haven't had it.
It's very mild, though. It doesn't.
Yeah.
It almost tastes like we've opened it up with water already.
Interesting. I wonder if water will do anything or if it'll just dull it down. I was expecting, because of the word peat, to be smacked in the face with a sack of lawn, right? So, and it's not what it tastes like at all. And so it's unfortunate because I let it sit for quite a while. Not that it ages or goes bad because it wasn't open. So there's no harm to it. But it came in a gift basket, a beautiful gift basket with lots of different things. This is the only thing that was left.
Yeah, it's definitely... I like it.
Yeah, it's not bad. I wouldn't have bought it, and now...
Well, don't get to
there. I'm not getting there, but I wouldn't have bought it. I would have... In fact, I avoided it for a year sitting on the shelf at home.
Because it was peat.
Because I read the word peat. And I don't even know if it says the word peat. If it says malt, what does it say? High in peated malt. And that's high in peated malt.
All right.
I mean,
So as I get to know this dram, maybe you could tell us about the question from last week.
So last week, James asked me about the regions in Scotland. And I think over our next 10, again, we'll have our little special one next week, but our next 10, I think we're going to focus on each of the regions. And so I did a bit of research. Some places it says...
By the way, that's a nice shirt.
Well, thank you. What are you wearing for a watch today? My favorite. Yeah, that in blue would just... anyway, I do like it a lot.
I think they come in blue.
Well, don't show it to me. I'd rather buy another bottle of scotch. Or 3. Anyway, so there's a bit of... things about the regions in Scotland. In some things it says there's 4 or 5 or 6 depending on who you talk to, but essentially you have the Highlands, which is the upper part of Scotland, and the Lowlands, which is the lower part. And there's
makes sense.
And there's a thing called the Highland line that actually separates the two. But then in the Highland there's islands, and so some people think that the islands are part of Highland Scotch. Some people call the islands their own thing, but they do have their own distinct flavor. Typically. Then also up in that Highland area is Speyside, and it's extremely popular, the most distilleries per square mile anywhere in the world. And then you have the Islay, which is the island in the lower west of Scotland, and another region called Campbelltown, which is a piece that sort of sticks out of the bottom, sort of beside the lowland, but more in the water, like a peninsula that sticks out. It sticks out into the I guess it's the Atlantic Ocean. So each region actually has typical flavor palettes. It doesn't mean that you couldn't get, a strong whiskey from an area that typically has light whiskey, but they typically have their own flavor palettes, right? And so the islands tend to have big, bold, sweet whiskeys or scotches. The Speyside is actually quite a bit diverse, but they tend to have a lot of actually malted whiskeys, but extremely diverse in flavors. So honey, fruity, spicy, oaky, dryness. Anyway, so it's diverse, but that tends to be the area. The Highlands, of course, is the biggest region in all, but they tend to be dry, spicy, honey type whiskeys. The Islay, which is that lower island, that one island that's specific, tends to have bold buttery, and I think you and I like that bold buttery flavor.
I've never described it as buttery.
No, neither have I. But I and smoky. And I don't know if we've had anything very smoky yet, but I'd like to see what we have. When we go that route. The Campbellton area tends to be briny and smoky, and so briny is actually a different word for me. I haven't quite figured out what that means. Yeah. So I'm thinking it's like a pickle or a vinegar or that kind of a astringent acid flavor. I don't know. I'll have to double check. And then the lowland tends to be more light, grassy, and mild and floral. But I think it's going to be really interesting. I think we should try, if you're up for this, grabbing a couple from each region.
For our next 10.
Yeah. We can't visit Scotland yet. So let's virtually visit it over the next 10 bottles.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Good lesson. Thank you.
Well, thank you. It was fun.
Yeah, this is interesting because I'm looking forward to the next 10 bottles being from Scotland because it's so huge. I read last week, how many barrels of whiskey do you think are in Scotland right now maturing?
Oh, that is interesting. Wow. So barrels. And how many bottles do you think a barrel holds? Not that that's going to help me in my math at all. It's a delay tactic. I'm going to go real high and say like 5 million.
22 million barrels.
I thought it was high.
Are maturing in Scotland.
Wow.
Yeah. And as far as bottles, it's something like the last estimate was 32 bottles of scotch are exported from Scotland every second.
Wow. So
in the run of a year, if you laid them end to end, that's like 90% of the way to the moon.
Wow.
It is it contributes to their GDP and their jobs. I think I read there were 10,000 jobs related to
Scotch.
Distilleries and
Wow. That is crazy.
Yeah.
It's funny because I wonder how many barrels are actually empty per year. Because if there's, how many did you say, 22? 28? 22 million. Like, how many of those are just waiting the 3 years and plus 1 day, which is actually, I learned during this research, you need 3 years plus a day, apparently, to actually bottle it and call it scotch. I wonder how many of those are just doing that 3-year cycle.
Yeah.
Versus how many are sitting there on a 15, 12, 18, 20, 25-year cycle, right?
And that brings up another interesting sort of movement or development in the space where folks are developing technology to hyper-age.
I've read that this week too.
Your whiskeys?
Yeah.
So that might be an interesting conversation for next week.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do we feel about that? What does the industry feel about that?
Yeah. It's kind of because I value the tradition.
Yeah. There's a.
But if you can take 3 years plus a day, but make it feel like it's 15 years, I'm all for that.
I don't know.
Right? Like, imagine hyper-aging something, but still at least letting it sit for 3 years plus a day.
I'm guessing some traditional distilleries would beg to differ.
Right. Yeah. And I guess the question is, are you getting the notes real, or are you getting like a superficial version of the note that may not linger on the palate the same? Like, who knows, right?
I don't know.
But
there's a certain ceremony and trueness that comes with
aging
the traditional way. But yeah, if you couldn't tell the difference
as a consumer, what the heck's the problem? Right. Exactly.
Well, from a consumer point, maybe. But is there still something to be said about? I don't know. We'll talk about it next week.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a great question. So maybe you can do a little research on that next week and see what the purists think and what the advocates for express aging or whatever they call it, hyper aging, think about it. But it's funny that came up through my feed this week too as I was scrolling through on the social media.
All right, so we need our second dram. We'll open it with water. See if I got the peat that time.
Did you?
The peat finish. Maybe I just
need to cleanse your palate with this instead of.
Yeah.
All right.
We didn't have our palate cleanser?
No, we didn't. We were kind of rushed starting today, and so shame on us. So I did have a little sip of the water, but I didn't have any of the crackers or anything like that.
I use 3 drops.
All right.
Because
That seems
I'm
to be
just
enough.
curious to see how this one goes. Now, we still haven't gone on record with any notes.
Well, you captured a little bit of peatiness, you said.
Yeah, but there's definitely a floral, sweet floral.
There's something there. There is a little tiny bit of sweet at the end of it, but coming into it, there's I don't know what it is. I don't have the reference,
No.
and that's the challenge, right?
Well, let's see what it tastes like when opened up.
All right. Do you find it's different at all?
I think the water added complexity to it for me. It brought out some other things.
And I wonder if it was just that the first glass was kind of cleansing your palate from
Possibly.
supper or whatever, right?
Possibly. But with right now, my complaint before would have been it feels kind of plain.
Yeah. Well, it's
now
funny
it
because
doesn't.
what I bought us as a surprise, because I
Okay.
was worried about this, was the little whiskey stones that we've kind
Oh,
of said
cool.
you don't really need. Because I thought it would be so strong and peaty that I'd have to try to dull it down to
Right.
enjoy it. Whiskey
Whiskey
chillers. Yeah. And so, I mean, eventually I put them in. I've seen some where they're all different colors and that kind of stuff. So if you're, but
Let me
they're
see.
kind of huge for our Glencairn glasses. But here, I'll try
They're
one.
like
I'm almost afraid to drop them in.
they're
Like
like little granite feeling.
yeah, they're just little
Stones.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I'll get the desk all wet.
I
But,
like them.
so I tried it. I don't know why, but I did.
Gotta give that a second to see if it dulls your.
Well, the problem is I don't know if I want it dull. And I certainly, it's not great in the Glencairn, is it? I mean, if you had a traditional rocks glass, which we do have,
Yeah.
maybe it wouldn't be so bad. But I'm not a big fan.
They're neat.
Yeah, they are neat. But I think if we do have a whiskey that we find is a little bit off our palate, a little bit too strong, they're here. They're here. They're in the freezer.
Yeah, it's pleasant. It's a bit plain for me. Let's get to the review.
All right. So I can't say I bought this. I brought this.
Right.
But I did look up the price. You can get it locally here.
So I'm blind. I don't know what
Right.
it cost.
So would you buy it again?
Not really. Because if I'm gonna put something on my shelf, I want it to be something that I'm gonna look forward to grabbing. And this is kind of it just doesn't do it for me.
So I would say I'm relatively the same. Not bad. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
If it was given to me.
Fine teachers. It
Yeah,
really,
yeah. Yeah, it didn't. There was nothing here that made me go, "Oh my God, I love it. I want it." So I don't know if I wouldn't buy it again. And as a gift, I'd like it. I will drink this.
I think it'd be a good gift because it's pleasant. I like it.
Yeah.
It's just
And it's not super strong in any area, even though it said high in peated malt. I was so worried about it. I shouldn't have been.
like
It's-
if I
it's fine.
sit down in the evening and want to like appreciate a dram.
It's not complex enough for that.
Right. So if you want to join us next week, like, subscribe,
Hit
or
that
not,
button.
smash the button, and we'll see you next week. Don't
Cling,
break-
cling, cling, break,
break my
smash. I don't have anything
Cheers.
left to cheers with. I'll try.